Unataka tuanzie hivi sasa kama
Tuache kwanza.
hii hata tuambia kama hatujamaliza tutapresent tu.
Kwani?
Sasa hii. Nikimaliza hii.
Ndio naandika hapa kwa mtego hapo. Wanataka kusikiza sauti. Sasa andika 3. Andika hapa 3. Unaona vile tunaandika? Wewe nitakwambia. Andika preservation.
Do this. Wacha kwanza aone vile tunafanya. Tulichange vile tunafanya. Sio tiko tena.
Unajua tunaenda hii. Ona. Andika ni rahisi. Tunatoka hapa. So tumefika hapa.
So let me show you.
Wewe andikeni tu hapo.
This is number 1.
Andika. Mimi nitafanya kesho. Nitafanya saa 8.
This is number 4. 5.
6.
7.
Haya wewe basi fanya. Preservation. Wewe fanya. Endelea tu. Lakini ushike system. Nitafanya saa 8. Mimi nilifanya jana, leo ni huyu ni wewe. Sitaelewa hiyo handwriting ni wewe. Kesho. Na sekretari wa saa 8. Tuko 3. Sawa, andika. Lete ingine, ameandika 4. Nimeandika 4.
Sawa, acha tuendelee na hiyo 4.
Tuendelee na 4.
Tutachukua kabisa tuweke
3 nyuma. Multistakeholders. What are we doing right? Scientific. But in terms of acceptance.
whether the scientists are informing the community or not, so that it becomes accepted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, hapa acceptability ni by the stakeholders.
Yes.
Sindio?
And in order to accept it, you must be good acceptance. For the sake of the training, let us not go to the point.
Yeah.
Because this one is about
Climate change.
But again, I tend to think stakeholders tend to accept it scientifically because of the authorized bodies to handle such matters.
okay.
For example, the meteorological department, if they announce ABC, the society tends to think it's okay because they are the ones who are authorized. So in my thinking in Najua too, there has been researches and what have you, that's why they are informing.
So the thing is that they are sent because it is coming from reliable sources.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's the one.
Yeah.
When we put it that way,
Yeah.
It can be
you can
clear.
add your own distance.
Yeah.
Authorized.
And
And reliable. Yeah. What needs to change?
Even I think the indigenous knowledge,
Indigenous knowledge,
just
yeah.
this ancient practice,
Yes. The cultural
Cultural.
beliefs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
practice,
yeah. So they, you say it's cultural.
Yes, it's culture.
Yeah, it's culture.
It's culture.
Okay, okay, so we like it. Yeah.
Cultural.
and it has
Beliefs.
Yeah.
And it,
despite that,
yeah.
And it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
watu wanaenda milimani
Eh,
wanakuja
eh.
kuzi, watakuja kwenda.
Eh,
So,
ni ukweli. It works.
sema walienda milimani,
Wameomba. Eh, ni ukweli.
Twende part B. What needs?
What needs to change?
thinking of asking what are the gaps?
Yeah.
What are the gaps kwa hii?
And cultural.
What do you think are the gaps?
Ni kama ile tulikuwa tunaambiwa some of the gaps in the knowledge ni ile unaambiwa sehemu fulani itanyesha mvua. So,
A good point.
what needs to change?
It's narrowing or errors. What I mean, for example, uko na hii area, si ndio? Unasema 70% itakuwa na mvua. Sasa unakuta hii kamvua, kwa hiyo 30% pengine ni kaidi kama hapa na patches hapa. So what we should narrow is, which means that percent not correct. 70%, so this one maybe to 80% correct and 20% incorrect.
Incorrect.
Yeah.
Because that
Kwanza ameongea kisayansi.
Sana.
more
Scientific.
Yeah. At the same time,
You will explain.
no, at
Narrow
the
The problem is that
And
They will give you the answer and they will give you
Documentation.
Let's go for lunch. Tunaendelea kutoka lunch. Hiyo moja kwenye lunch. They'll never ever. No, in school though, no, especially the basic school that like the teacher in secondary, most of although I don't know what you learn in primary, yeah, secondary, so many people is still when you university, then you are ready to learn. But I think they don't do very good. Other people are doing that they never used to. Sometimes
Gani? Gani? Naeka dasha hii.
What needs to change? What needs to change also ni that ambacho haijatumika.
Haijatumika hata.
The whole of number. Mimi naona the whole of number 5 is new.
Hakuna mahali naweza pia.
You have to start by doing it. Then what needs to be changed from what has been done? What can that change? This one be achieved. So yote inarudi kwa hii ya kwanza. Kama hakuna yote
Inakuwa hakuna vile ya kwanza ita.
See what are we doing right about that thing?
Tukasema dash hakuna.
Si ndio? So what needs to be changed here?
To change it.
Mimi naona kama change because hii imekuwa dash na haijawahi
You change from doing.
the scientific hakuna relationship, hakuna hawajawahi kuja pamoja.
We relate pamoja na indigenous.
That's why we are talking common. Now that is the case, tunasema hakuna. Sawa. Then the second question inakuja hapa. What needs to be done now that these things
Usichange your
What need to be
change
Or to improve.
or to improve. So it's something that has been existing. You want to
Or to introduce. We are here. We need what we can say. Introduction of new idea for the subject.
what needs to change.
I think hii sikuwa ni dash. Weka dash tutakosea. Naona kama tutakosea kabisa. Hiyo ni maoni. Sawa. Mimi naona kama now that hakujapata iko
Hata ni ile tulikuwa tumesema whereby we bring the knowledge experts of our indigenous and the science together. We see where they discuss where the areas of collaboration and so on. Studio. Yes. Yeah.
kama ni
Hiyo inakuwa a bit tricky.
what need to change is that they need to coexist. The coexistence moja kwa moja, they exchange.
Yes. There's a creative forum
Yes,
whereby they can exchange knowledge.
yes.
Yeah.
Both the indigenous and the
They exchange knowledge and the root areas of collaboration.
yes. Madam,
They need to exchange knowledge.
tunaona mahali tunaingia. Is it making any sense?
Ina make.
Hata umeandika kitu tayari.
Exchange knowledge. When we are talking of knowledge, different knowledge.
Yeah.
The indigenous
Indigenous and the
na the formal. Tunajua kwa mfano Waafrika walikuwa wanaendelea kabla mzungu akuja ajenga hospitali. Mwafrika alikuwa anatumia miti kama madawa. See, that's knowledge.
Yes.
It was indigenous knowledge. It was a way of life. Now the new thing has come. So that's why we need to come together and exchange those ideas. Nyinyi mlikuwa mnafanya aje?
before watoke.
Yes.
And then plus they are what knowledge. Those people with knowledge. Both the science and
Consensus.
Niko kusema bring both the scientific experts and indigenous experts to exchange knowledge
To create
and
consensus.
ama nipata kusema and bring consensus
Yes.
on where they can command.
It's okay. It's making sense.
They'll agree.
Unajua, acha niwaambie, masomo ya Mombasa hakuna ile ambayo ni wrong. Na alafu hata ukienda kwa universities, any answer is right
As long as it's over.
As long as you can be able to substantiate
Yeah.
or to support it, you give some facts. You build some fact around it. Haya, sawa, tunaendelea. Tulisema enablers.
Enablers.
See, what can enable? What are the enablers in this case? How can that one be achieved? Are we together, brother? We are talking of enablers. Enablers. What can enable this correlation or the co-management take place? Can we say mutual understanding?
Yeah, I was looking for that one.
There must be a mutual understanding between them. That will bring the two parties on board. Mutual understanding. Can we say that one?
One is yes, mutual understanding is also each group has to appreciate one another.
One another.
Yes.
Once you appreciate, then you can come together.
Okay, yeah.
Lakini sio kusema hii miti, hii mnasema sio dawa, then you cannot come together. Yeah.
Mutual
You have
understanding.
you have yeah.
Kuna kitu ulikuwa unasema? Once we talk of mutual understanding in this case,
And acceptance.
and acceptance, by both tunaweza kuwaita namna gani?
Scientific experts.
Yes, scientific experts.
And KI.
And?
KI, you wanaita KI.
An introduction of modern technology, you see when you introduce modern technology, that one is, I thought, what it needs to change, because right now we are using these other technologies which sometimes they are not effective. Or like if we talk about agriculture, when we use new technologies and we do smart agriculture, it increases the produce. But how can that change be achieved? That is when we have the capacity building. Director Niaji. So I thought
This is about the how, the method.
Yeah, about the methods.
Naingia how.
Then hii ndio equal, I mean, hii sasa. Alafu ina hizi zingine hizi mbili. Hebu soma hii hapo ya pili.
Emphasize the importance of transferring and integrating both knowledges.
that one it can be.
Both indigenous and scientific.
Emphasize the importance of
Transferring
Transferring
and integrating both knowledge.
modern and
modern and
indigenous.
indigenous, yes.
Okay, another
Alafu
is
clear.
a clear and shared focus with properly directed knowledge objectives.
Yes, I think that one.
So ile iko na tatizo ni hii, sio?
Hiyo ndio hapa.
Hii ndio transfer this one here.
Lakini wakati wa kusoma labda utawaambia hii. So number 3.
Unafanya hivi. Tuende namba
How can that change be achieved?
exactly.
How can that change be achieved? So moja ni hiyo capacity building,
Capacity building.
multistakeholders, assessing jointly developed strategies.
both indigenous and modern.
Validating different knowledge systems.
Validate. Soma ile ingine.
Ingine, outreach strategies, common knowledge exchange and adaptation of technologies. Who should take lead?
We should take lead.
Information generators,
County government, stakeholders.
stakeholders.
Yes, so,
Information generators, you mean researchers,
yes, such as also.
What,
universities? What do you mean?
yes, what we were told yesterday, information generators are those who come first. Information like KMD, we come focused on climate information. So there are people like those.
Information generators.
Yes.
So we have generators, we have users, we have brokers. Gani wengine jana? Tena kusema.
See, yeah. Nafikiria, unajua when we talk of stakeholders, we include even the farmers. So, who should take lead?
So yeah, then we have to CSOs, NGOs, private sector here. Well, all these are private sector.
All these are private sectors.
Civil society organizations.
No,
NGOs are private
These
sector.
are private sectors.
no, they are
So
not.
why
They are
only
not.
county government, national government is there?
You can add national government here. Okay, the national government.
So, I just said that documentation.
Commitment. Usoma, the shareholders should
Stakeholders.
ensure
Provision of simplified and timely knowledge. Simplified and timely knowledge.
county to
Commit to disseminate information.
Who should commit now
But medical, the stakeholders
commit,
should-
isn't it?
commit to share, disseminate information.
The stakeholders should ensure
Provision of
provision of simplified
timely
and timely
knowledge.
knowledge. Timely information for knowledge sound. Knowledge to
Commit to disseminate information. Ingine nao the stakeholders kama huku
labda tuende hiyo swali ya pili. Tulikuwa tunaleta director kwa yangu yake. So we have the documentation
Tuko ya pili.
of adaptation knowledge.
Documentation of adaptation knowledge. What are
Are we doing right?
what are we doing right? Documentation of adaptation knowledge.
I think what we are doing right is involvement of stakeholders on documentation, like asiwandike I think I think on what we are doing light on this documentation, we are involving or we are engaging different stakeholders on this process of documentation.
Documentation, no? Documentation.
Or what are we doing light on documentation?
That all documents should be kept. Documentation of adaptation knowledge.
Documentation must be something written. Documentation must be something written.
Yes, where we go and record those things and light. I think what we are doing light, Mwalimu, nafikiri hiyo document, we are engaging different stakeholders on the process of doing this documentation because they were talking of indigenous knowledge people and we have not yet come up with documentation. So we are trying to engage different stakeholders so that we can have such a documentation.
Engagement of different stakeholders.
Yes, on the process of documentation.
Taeka aje. Sasa hivyo.
You are trying to steal the exam.
I'm not saying. I'm just consulting.
Hata hujaamka.
What needs to change?
Tuandike hiyo moja tu.
Unajua time karibu kuisha ama kuna ingine?
Na ingine yeah, something on this.
Hebu soma hiyo amesema kwanza.
Engagement of different stakeholders.
Yeah, we are engaging different stakeholders for this process of documentation lighting.
Documentation of adoption of knowledge.
So documentation involves also sharing.
Yes. Putting it in action. That can benefit everyone.
Sharing and dissemination.
Sharing and dissemination.
Are we using the media, the radio, social media? Those who are generating this knowledge, do they do that?
So we have the number 2 question, what needs to change? Because this time we are doing a lot of engagement with stakeholders. Maybe what we need to do is to engage all the people, including the community, through now the radio stations,
Yes.
and TVs.
So it rely on
It rely on what need to change.
what needs to change.
So unaweza andika hiyo mwalimu ametupea what needs to change.
What needs to change.
Yes.
Sasa tuache ikiwa moja tu.
Unaweza acha kadogo
Space kidogo.
Space kidogo ya tarudia hapo.
What needs to change.
asiandike hiyo mwalimu amesema.
Sharing and dissemination. Sharing and dissemination.
Unajua documentation of adaptation knowledge. Sasa hiyo ku minimize climate change, tunaandika kama climate change. Hiyo ku minimize climate change ndio tunaandika. namna hiyo ndio tuna documentation of adaptation knowledge, the knowledge about what we should do.
Are we not doing about indigenous knowledge? Unajua tulikuwa tunaongea kuhusu integration of
Both
Indigenous and scientific.
both
and
Both of
scientific.
them.
we are bringing both of them together. You see?
So mwalimu, what needs to change is the way of engagement.
Yes.
We change it from the way we do it to use the radius and whatever in communication. Ama mwalimu umesema nini?
Yeah, that's what I meant. How actually we pass on this information to others through the new media, like the social media, WhatsApp, Facebook, and
Umeelewa? Marudie akupa sentence sasa.
Usage of platforms.
yes, use of
Use of
social media.
platform. Okay.
Use of media platform.
To document.
Like Facebook and social media, WhatsApp, and
Mira.
Kuna mwalimu wetu shule alikuwa anakuuliza, is there a river near your place? Ungemwambiaje? Kuna mwalimu kwetu alikuwa anatuuliza whether there is a river near our place. Nimwambia ni kweli iko, nakwambia look at your right, unapeleka juu chini juu chini.
Oh, handwriting.
Unaona huyu anapeleka juu. So it's like you are drawing a river.
Kadhaa. Okay, kuna kitu kingine tutaeleza.
Hii for
Platform.
Platform. Staff and
na TV pia ungeweka kutoka pale mwisho wa redio
how can
na kaes kidogo.
how can that change be achieved?
how can that change be achieved?
Through, I think it can be changed through nimeandika kitu high
Tumia black.
levels, nilikuwa nimeandika high levels, nilikuwa nimesema high levels of collaboration and communication which would facilitate interaction of quality knowledge between generators and stakeholders.
Kidogo tu. Change be achieved.
Lovely. La landmark is on the right.
Sema bye.
High levels of collaboration collaboration and communication which would facilitate interaction of quality knowledge. Between the generators and the stakeholders. Commitment.
Who should take it?
Who should take the lead? Just the
Researchers,
tuko na vile kama hiyo ya generators, county government, stakeholders.
researchers hawezi ingilia. Researchers hawa ndio
Researchers for documentation. when we talk of stakeholders, are we not including the researchers?
in fact wako ndani
What is the commitment? Mwalimu, tunaweza sema
When
ni
you say stakeholders, all these are stakeholders. You want to say the users of the community?
Kama res,
Hmm?
kama research assistant. Watafall under.
Because these are also stakeholders here. In the process of documentation, all these are also
ama useme tu other stakeholders.
ama weka tu date hapa ndio useme tu community. Example tu ya example tu commitments. The commitment, what is the understanding? When they talk of commitment, what are they looking at?
I think we need resources, budgetary allocation, and financing. Because if it is documentation, we need funds.
Na pia watumie the simplest language possible ili iweze kuelewa kwa haraka. Kama unadhani ni haraka.
How's it going? Chairman,
Yes.
vipi? Tumepata wazee wazito sasa.
Bado.
I think we are good.
Huyu mzee unamjua?
Huyu simjui namuona tu lakini nikimwona hivi
He's the director of
namjua. I know him. I know him. Mwalimu sisi tunajuana sana.
Trend nyingine preservation and operation of knowledge.
Si ni wewe, kwa nani anaandika?
Hata tujamaliza. Hata tuone kusoma hii kitu yako hivi.
Hiyo rating yako.
Hiyo rating yako ndio tunaisoma. Ni kweli. Unataka mtu aende kwa strain.
Sasa
You proceed. Tuende mimi.
Kwani tunafanya mpaka mwisho?
mpaka
Iko mingi sana hii kitu hii.
Hii sasa fail. Mpaka mwisho. Mpaka hapa.
Sasa spending.
Nataka imeisha.
Ah.
nani amesema tena imeisha?
Basi
Si basi tuandike hiyo kitu.
si tunapisha tu mali tumefika. Tuko ya tatu. Preservation and curation of knowledge. What will you think right? Hiyo kupreserve, tunafaa kupreserve wapi? Tunafaa tuweke wapi hiyo information? In document form.
What does that mean?
Preservation and curation of knowledge. Yani the knowledge, the local and modern knowledge, how can we preserve that together? Yani you know, we are condensed. Tumeleta pamoja, sasa tutapreserve aje? But if we say hata hiyo bana. Si
You are doing a
what if we say we document? Huh? Mwalimu. Tuseme
inakaa kama
tuna document. We document. Yeah. Kwa sababu for you to preserve, it must be in documented form. Something written.
unajua hii jina inasema aje hii?
Kiwa.
Inasema knowledge as the selection of a subset of information based on specific criteria and distribute it to the consumer in an effective and easily consumable manner.
That's all.
Eh? So I think it should be the documentation should be done in a simplified language.
Yes. Ni ile ingine ya kwanza maana tulifika commitment.
Lakini daktari atuambie labda
Unasema? You know, you preserve, and then what you have preserved, then you present it in to others, isn't it? It's about preservation and then presentation, isn't it?
What you have said.
Oh, what you're doing right. Oh, you're reading right.
you can say we are packaging the information in a compatible manner.
Yes.
Tunaenda mtu hapa na pesa.
Packaging information in a compatible so it is preserve and nini nyingine tunafanya ama tuende muhimu
Sasa kuchora rivers ndio msikose maji.
Nitakuwekea hivi. Sura.
Aweka hivyo, weka tuangalie kama
Hapana.
wacha tuone kama iko
Hakuna
effective.
shida, kwani nani huyu ana mark hiyo kwenda hivyo? Saa hii itaenda hivi, nikiandika siku nyingine itaenda straight.
Ni kweli.
Ni kweli.
Sasa wacha
Ya kesho
iweke
yote
hivyo.
itaenda.
Lakini hiyo siku nyingine hatutakuwa hapa. Hiyo siku nyingine
I know the problem. Yangu sio hiyo ingine.
Hapa yangu sio hii. Hii ni yangu.
Wewe kila dakika unapoteza simu, unapoteza kifunguo.
Karamu ni wewe uko naye.
Mtu andike.
so
Mtu harakishe.
Haya.
What needs to change? What needs to change?
Zingine haujaangarai. Hata umeanza kupata experience. Wewe wacha kuangalia huko. Hapa ndani hakuna ng'ombe. Unajua mtu anaextra anafikiria kuhusu ng'ombe.
baadaye si mimi si wa livestock, mimi nimefanya range so hizi mimi ni wa range. Mimi si wa livestock. Wewe ni wa?
Wewe ni wa?
Nimefanya range management.
Range.
Yeah.
Range land.
Range land, yes.
Kwani range land hakuna ng'ombe?
Sawa, twende. Tuendelee. What needs to change?
What needs to change?
And the preservation and creation of knowledge. Kuna mambo mingi mpaka ufikirie kabisa na si mtihani.
Hizi zingine tunaandikanga aje?
Kwa nini tutoe kwa ile nini tulikuwa nayo? Ile 10.
Hiyo 10 tumeshamaliza.
Tushamaliza.
Kitambo sana hiyo. Hiyo tulimaliza point ya kwanza. Hatutatu.
Nafikiria what needs to change.
Preservation and creation of knowledge. Hapo kwa preservation and creation of knowledge ni nini inafaa kubadilishwa?
The way we preserve, you know, mbeleni si watu walikuwa wana preserve in a documentary form, pengine indigenous one.
Bado ni
So we have to change that. We have to document that in the ways kutumika in future. Hawa namna gani?
so indigenous knowledge to be documented.
Or digitized.
So digitalized.
Ndio. Unaje daktari? Hiyo inaweza ingia.
Kwa nini refu hivyo?
Digitalized.
Digitalized ni hivyo.
Imekuwa refu? Ni hivyo.
Iko hivyo? Umepata?
I think this is
Hii ni I ndio E.
hii ni hii. Wewe yuko
Tukianza maneno na spelling mtapotea.
I think here also,
Hata hapa nilikuwa nasema baada ya kusema change we say improve. Watu hadi improve sababu hatuwezi change.
lakini hii ni vile waliandika, sio?
Hivi hatuwezi change na andika.
Lakini tumesema what needs to be improved. Sababu huwezi change ile
Or
kitu.
change or improve. This one, it is documented in which language?
In a formal language that inaeleweka.
Formal language.
Simplified. Sasa hata kama ni Kiswahili by the way. Sasa hiyo tutaweka aje?
Ile language inaweza kuelewa kwa hiyo jamii.
Sasa kwa nini hawa hawajai document? Sababu hawa wana practice. Sasa it is being practiced. Sasa hawezi sahau.
But tuna document ndio sipote with time, sio?
Sasa mna document na simple language. Kama nilisema aje simplified language.
Maybe local language. Do documentation in local language.
What's in local language?
Because you can have Camp Simpire. Naona ame capture birds, trees, in the local language. Unasoma in the local language na unasoma also in the scientific botanical name also.
Kama hata Christianity ukiona Bible kuna hata zingine wamesimplify local language na wanaelewa.
How to achieve that? How can that be achieved? How can that change be achieved? How can that change be achieved?
Method.
Haiko kwa hiyo. Sababu yangu inasema it can be achieved by
Sasa tungekuwa tumeasha hii tunasema it can be achieved through using local languages.
You can still say it.
Yeah.
Sawa.
Baros.
hapana.
Unaweza sawa, iko hivyo.
Amepata.
Tungekuwa tumesema
Amepata. So
Hiyo ni method.
sasa weka hapo.
Weka hapo.
Hii weka.
This is a method.
Iko hivyo.
not a method.
How can this
Through using
By use of local language. Yes.
hapana
So, ukianza kusema hapana utaenda kuletea.
by creating
Sawa, wacha sema sasa yake useme.
Yes, useme yake.
Sema yako
it can be achieved
eh.
through creation of platforms that bring together policymakers.
Hiyo Kiingereza yote nitaanza kuuliza maswali.
Si tutajibu kiulizo unasema wewe group
So unaandika tu forum, through a forum for
yeah
a forum which brings together generators and the policymakers and the users.
Community forums. Kama ni
Yes.
forum ni nini? Community, through community forums.
unajua
Sema
this
tu
one,
forums.
we are thinking of how to serve this guy. So for this to be achieved of how because we have we have good stakeholders.
Tumesema huko mbele periodic
Wachana hiyo.
sema hiyo yako basi.
Through creation of amesema forums ama creation of platforms ama forums.
Forums. Sasa ndio nilikuwa nawaambia to be specific community forums kama ni yote stakeholder forum.
Forum na platform they are the same thing.
They are kitu the same. Forum na platform.
Mimi hiyo iko sawa lakini nasema stakeholders forum. Either community, county government, wote.
Sawa sawa. Wote wakuje pamoja ndio waweze preserve. Tuna hiyo. Hello.
So hii umeleta kwa
Hii ni data hapa.
Hello?
I think the dialogue now we need to come to a conclusion. Then we have an opportunity to share what you guys have come up from this discussion, so that we can also have like report or whatever. Some people to comment on your findings, compare notes, and also be in a position to see whether we are thinking along the same line or we are thinking completely different. Alafu harmonize the various of the thematic. I realized that there was different. Because of the language used, not easy to understand. And therefore, that's why it has taken a little. Hello? I think there's an opportunity to still make amends. As people present, you will also have a chance to amend. If there's something new that comes into your mind immediately, you can write it down. This microphone is misbehaving. Hello? So what I was saying is that if in the process of presentation you can remember something that is important, you can write it down, and then we can share it again, even a little more in the morning before we start the gender and the gender responsive, social inclusive climate action. So I think we're going to do like an energizer, and then we can start the presentation. I don't know which group. This guys finished early. So, oh, so you're not the ones to start. John, you're the one to start? Yeah. This group will start, and then this group will be number 2. You present second. Oh, these two groups are saying, now I'll make it up. I use my powers bestowed on me. This is number 3 to present, and that group will be the last to present. So who's going to help us with Energizer? Dr. Usonga, can you help us with Energizer? Yeah.
you're doing that, you are seeing your two heads down there. That's what you do properly. Yeah. So let's do it very fast now. Don't give the same speed. Don't give the same speed. Okay, very fast. Okay. Now, assume there is a wall on this side and another wall on this side. So that's right and just the wall as if you are moving them apart. Okay? Okay, I'll count up to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Assume it's just coming up here. Again, cut 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Assume it is right ahead in front of you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Clap for yourself. Now, you want to come up with which leg you want to do? Oh, here.
Integrate scientific and indigenous knowledge to minimize climate change. How to integrate scientific and indigenous knowledge to minimize climate change. 1. An equitable participatory approach. So, another one is knowledge exchange. Knowledge exchange. Knowledge exchange, that is, both from scientific and indigenous knowledge. But process, I'm just highlighting the way it is. Mutually rewarding learning experience, problem focused, demand driven, and project or pilot based approach. Another one is building the capacity of all stakeholders, public awareness, the culture of continuity and sustainability. Another one is periodic participatory assessment of targets and how well they have been achieved. And lastly, outreach strategies, knowledge exchange, and adaptation of technologies. Quality available
knowledge. What are we doing right? Participatory approach, knowledge exchange, collaborative process. What needs to change or improve? Emphasize the importance of transferring and integrating both knowledges, that is both scientific and indigenous. A clear shared focus with properly directed knowledge objectives. How can that change be achieved? Through building capacity of all the stakeholders, assessing jointly developed strategies, through validating different knowledge systems, outreach strategies, knowledge exchange and adaptation of technologies. Who should take lead? Information generators, county government and national government. Stakeholders, that is NGOs, IGOs, and CSOs. Commitment. The stakeholders should ensure provision of simplified and timely knowledge. Commit to disseminate information. Documentation of adaptation knowledge. What are we doing right? Engagement of different stakeholders. What needs to change? Use of media platforms such as radio station, TV, and WhatsApp. How can that change be achieved? By high level of collaboration and communication, we should facilitate interaction of quality knowledge between generators and stakeholders. Who should take lead? Information generation, county and national government, stakeholders, that is community. Commitment is by budget allocation and financing, preservation and creation of knowledge. What are we doing right? Packaging information in a compatible manner. Compatible manner means we package information in documentation in an handwritten document. What needs to change or improved? Indigenous knowledge to be documented and digitalized. We have said indigenous knowledge sometimes or always have not been documented. So what we need to change is to document that indigenous knowledge and digitalize. How can that change be achieved? Through creation of stakeholder forums and through using local languages. Who should take lead? The generators and county government. I think tulikuwa tumefika huko.
So, kuna mtu ako na comment? Addition, subtraction? Okay. The next group, please.
Yes. So what are the days? Do not deliver.
Afternoon. I'm Habiba Jilali, Ward Administrator for Bera Ward. For our group, we looked at the quality of available knowledge for both scientific knowledge and indigenous knowledge. What are we doing right? Scientifically, we said there is continuous research on the scientific knowledge for improvement. On the local knowledge or indigenous, we say there is continuation use of indigenous knowledge. For example, in the predictions of rains and what have you. What needs to change? Under scientific knowledge, what needs to change is the application of the scientific knowledge to the community. We find that there is no application of such findings. In the indigenous knowledge, we say what needs to change. There is need for inclusivity of community members in the indigenous knowledge. Also, we say there is need for introduction of IK into school curriculums. What are the enablers? Scientific knowledge, the enablers we find that is funding and also continuous support in the research. And local knowledge or indigenous knowledge, enablers, there is need for lobbying and more advocacy to be adopted in school curriculum. And also we said existence of the, another enabler is the existence of the local systems at different levels, where you find every community has its own system, like there's a council of elders for every community, where this indigenous knowledge originates from. Who should take lead in the process? For the scientific, we said both national and county governments, international bodies, and private investors. Under indigenous knowledge, we said the elite community members in the society, the county government, the Department of Culture, the Council of Elders, and the local administration. Commitments. Scientific knowledge, we said there is need for budgetary allocation from both national and county government, and also provision of indigenous knowledge unconditionally, where when you visit the community members and you want to know the process of how they are doing when they want to predict rain, they should not heed the information from you, so it should be given unconditionally. Number 2, documentation of adaptation knowledge. What are we right? Scientific knowledge, there is existence of research reports. Under indigenous knowledge, we say there is partial documentation of such knowledge, and also their cultural sites. What needs to change? Under scientific knowledge, there is need for collection and dissemination of the scientific data at the community level. Indigenous knowledge, we say there is need which is missing. Enablers, under scientific, we said funding, there is institution, the research institutions, then the support from the government. Under indigenous knowledge, enablers, resources in terms of expertise there,
and also funding, but partial. Who should take lead? Line ministries and the scientific knowledge, line ministries, departments, other agencies from both the national and county government, and community participation. Commitment, budgetary allocation for knowledge documentation. The third one was preservation and curation of knowledge. Under scientific, it is application of research methods. Those are the ones which are used in maintenance of such data. Under indigenous knowledge, we say there is passage of information from one generation to another. What needs to change? Under scientific, there is need for continuous use and application of research methods, thus maintenance of database. Under indigenous knowledge, we see the need for improvement and establishment of more cultural centers to promote continuity. What are the enablers? For both, we see resources in terms of manpower and also funding. Who should take lead? Line ministries, government departments, agencies, and community members. Commitment, again, budgetary allocation. The fourth aspect, acceptance of the knowledge sources by stakeholders. What are we doing right? Under scientific knowledge, knowledge coming, how is this knowledge accepted by the stakeholders? Because the knowledge is coming from authorized bodies and it's found to be reliable. Under indigenous knowledge, because this is cultural beliefs. The culture believes, so they accept it. What needs to change? Under scientific, we say there is need for co-production of scientific information. Under indigenous knowledge, we say there is need for inclusivity of community members and professionals. Enablers, dissemination of information to community members. Who should take the lead? All stakeholders, both indigenous and scientific. Commitment, again, resource allocation. And co-management and co-optation. What are we doing right? Because that there's nothing we are doing right. There's nowhere that indigenous knowledge and scientific knowledge has been merged. So we left it empty. What needs to change? There's need to bring both scientific experts and indigenous experts to exchange knowledge and build consensus on where to co-opt. What are the enablers? Mutual understanding and acceptance by both indigenous knowledge experts and scientific experts. There's also need for exchange of knowledge, expertise, and achievement by both IK and SK. Who should take the lead?
Both SK is scientific knowledge and IK is indigenous knowledge. The ministries, departments, and agencies, both in national and county government, also should take lead. Commitment. Both SK and IK should be committed both in kind and in resources. And also the need for budgetary allocations. Empirical data or experience. What are we doing right? Under scientific, we say the availability of those empirical data. Under IK, the indigenous knowledge, we say it's about the experiences and occurrences. What needs to be done right? There is need to integrate both IK and SK. And also we say that there is need for SK to embrace IK. And most of the time, we found that under scientific matters where we involve the traditional or the traditional knowledge, not accepted. For example, we were given a good example where there was a meeting of doctors, then there was need for traditional knowledge to be brought in, and so the knowledge cannot be accepted because there is no basis for such it can only be practiced at the federal level, but not at hospital. The enablers, there is goodwill from both scientific knowledge experts and the IK to learn from each other. Another enabler is source availability and manpower. Who should take the lead? Both SK and IK. Commitment. Resource allocation. The seventh one, superior knowledge. IK and SK. What are we doing right? We say the larger population is relying on scientific knowledge. What needs to be done right to integrate both SK and IK?
Thank you very much. Any reaction to that? Any reaction to that presentation from the
Thank you for a good presentation. The issue, they are saying that indigenous is continuous, yet we are told that those who used to do it have aged, and due to religious belief, those things are not being done, and we are talking about reviving them. So they are not continuous, they have stopped a bit. The traditional forecast, we said that those people, most of them have aged, and due to also religious belief, they have stopped a bit. So, predicting. Okay. Okay. That's why you're ready? Yes, Santi. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Unipatie masikio kidogo. So for group 3, hii tunaanza hapa. Pole. So I want to talk about barriers and enablers to adaptation knowledge flow. So we are starting from there, isn't it? We are starting from the table, or there's something before? Oh, asante. In the first row, barriers and enablers to adaptation. So the quality of available knowledge, I think we discussed well. Acha niendelee tu. Inakubali? Okay, so what are we doing right on the aspect of quality and available knowledge? So recognize the knowledge and traditional knowledge for integration. What needs to change, identify what can be integrated and how to begin integration. So and then how can that change be achieved? The stocks of co-production of the knowledge itself, and also knowledge forums. On the issues about documentation of adaptation knowledge, we said what we are doing right. Result of being that, and some we can what needs. So sometimes knowledge brokers, let's call them knowledge brokers, because there are people with that indigenous knowledge, and then there is people in between knowledge. So hold of those who go for the medicine masters. So who should take the lead in that? The county government, the NGOs, and also the other relevant or related sectors. Preservation and curation of knowledge. What are we doing right? Disjointed. There is efforts at different levels to work preservation of knowledge, indigenous specific. What needs to change? We need to make it a bit comprehensive so that it will not miss out important knowledge hole being left out, and it should be systematic. How can that change be achieved? Enablers policy to recognize traditional knowledge, and also Cultural Expression Act, And then there's also issues about registers within the Act and also repositories for knowledge, strengthening cultural centers, and then also resource centers. This can be, the county can take lead. Acceptance of the various knowledge sources by stakeholders. So what are we doing right? There are quite good forums to discuss knowledge and also indigenous and both scientific knowledge nowadays at the county level. What needs to change? We need to institutionalize. We need to have an institution that is responsible for these aspects. Co-management and co-production. What are we doing right? So we have like within systems, both account NGOs, collection sites. For example, within the NDMA system, we have the Sentinel sites. Within the county government system, we have WPC. So such community systems are already aspects of co-production and even co-management and also dissemination of data and information. What needs to change? We need to improve on the level of engagement with the ground. We feel the level is currently at a minimal level, so can we work on optimizing that? So we develop monitors, we even motivate them with capacity, enhance them. We increase their numbers so that there will be many people who will engage on issues about co-production and co-management of information. And then with that, I think we can achieve much. How can that change be achieved? Probably the government can try that. There are many people within the county and the national government. So that important institutions need to be a bit motivated. Who should take lead? National county government. Empirical data or experience. I think actual empirical data and experience are very important. So what we are doing right, we are both utilizing. We said indigenous knowledge need to be recorded, and for example, over time, there's a lot of uncertainty with climate now. Climate changing, weather becoming so unpredictable. So experience over years to predict even the unpredictable situation. So you can even have scenarios, probably if you have information or data collected over time. So how can we change this? The enablers, we agreed we need to give this data value. So we need to show how this data is important. Sometimes there are some people who are collecting, like for example, rain gauge information, but these people will never understand the value of that data. So can we explain, probably as we are doing some even forecast, can we show value for that data? Can we even, as we convene them, tell them that this prediction is as a result of your data? So can we give value to this data and also enhance its collection? This can be done by NGOs, can be done by county government, and even the national government through other. So some of these organizations, like the ones which normally engage every time in climate information, we can commit them. For example, MASICO, MIDP, different institutions like WFP, they are always supporting PSPs. So can we say that these people we can work with them to commit on what they can do on the data itself going forward? Superior knowledge, scientific or indigenous, which of the two is superior? Which one is superior? Indigenous. Scientific knowledge is superior. Umelala, kama naimba. Sasa naona watu wengi wamelala, watu wamelala sana, watu wanatumia mask sana kujificha macho walapo wamelala. Which one is superior? Nimeuliza plenary tu between indigenous and ile ingine scientific. Scientific is superior. Another opinion? Mi nasema hapana. Indigenous, watu wa indigenous umelala, watu wa scientific, watu wa kutoka na University of Nairobi wasipige kura. So we have also scientific one. So we said which one is superior? We said none is superior. So both are important and both need to be, you need to take it into consideration if you want to do anything. So there's need for recognition of indigenous knowledge because scientific knowledge already has a good platform. What needs to change? Tap into both the knowledge. So are we getting our references from both the knowledge? So can we take advantage of opportunities probably that are coming up nowadays to tap into both the knowledge and stop looking down on the indigenous knowledge? So how can we get this change? We need to have a continuous dialogue with probably interpreters, both scientific and even indigenous knowledge. Our friend Guyo said the traditional indigenous knowledge holders are, like, many of them are elders, and probably with time indigenous knowledge is going away. So can we take advantage of the ones which are already available and probably even crystallize or freeze the knowledge by documenting it? Who can take lead? National government, county government, through PSPs and others. Should we synthesize indigenous knowledge? Because indigenous knowledge is localized. Tuibadilishe indigenous knowledge ikuwe scientific. So what are we doing right on that? We said probably the efforts are there to bring scientific relevance to indigenous knowledge. Maybe wazee wanasema when rains are almost due, there are some elders who have indigenous knowledge of looking at the stars. And those elders normally say those stars are, what are they doing? Wale wa Jalala, just prove to Jalala. Huwa ina shine, sindio? So hiyo shining, some are saying ni the humidity in the air. Alafu ile light from the stars and then humidity in the air and inafanya glitter. So there's also science behind that glittering. And even the essence of humidity in the air here, bringing about the scientific aspect of rain. So, so we know that it's, we need to, there's a bigger group of people nowadays who feel like probably indigenous knowledge is important, but they will need some scientific explanation behind it. So can we probably, we are not scienticizing it, but we are saying this indigenous knowledge has also scientific background and it can be explained this way. So how can we explain both the two? Can we bring both the scientific knowledge holders, or probably the scientists and the indigenous knowledge holders, and then they have a discussion and see on the opportunities they can explain both the situation? That can happen through forums, research, and also documentation of indigenous knowledge. This can be done by research and academia, national government, and the county government and NGOs. Do we need to validate indigenous knowledge? Do we need to validate indigenous knowledge? What is the benchmark? So always this, we said always, science is the best benchmark for a bigger group. So the initial thinking before can be, many people rely on the traditional things, but nowadays many people are embracing science. So we felt what is happening, right? Yes, indigenous knowledge need to be validated, need to be given scientific relevance, unfortunate. The indigenous knowledge holders need to accept also critics from the modern system. So sometimes there's also a lot of commitment, I don't know, commitment to knowledge or belief to the knowledge. So if it is traditional, and sometimes it doesn't have any significance or proper scientific explanation behind it, the traditional knowledge holders need also to accept criticism, because currently the challenge is sometimes people tell you if you are traditional, you must believe in a certain line. So like your ability to probably criticize is blocked. So that is it. And how can this be changed? There's always need for dialogue between the traditional and the modern system, or the scientific system, and this can happen through intergenerational dialogues. Most of the time you find people who rely so much on the indigenous knowledge are people who are advanced in age, and the young and the social media gurus of nowadays will rely so much on scientific. So can we have an intergenerational discussion so that the elders can explain also the science and the experience behind the indigenous knowledge, and the young people can also get the opportunity. This can be facilitated by NGOs, national government or county government. We are having even currently discussions within the county on issues about grazing management and rangeland management. A lot of people who are managing grazing lands and rangelands are elders. So currently there are discussions ongoing in the county on intergenerational dialogue, specifically on peace, on rangeland management, on issues even about science, around 5 different themes of youth and elders engaging. So internal hemorrhages in knowledge systems, role of religion. What are we doing right? So there is also some impact of religion on the indigenous knowledge. So there are some very strong indigenous beliefs and knowledge which have been criticized, or I don't know, they have been weakened by the religious beliefs. So for example, even in forecasting, there are people, even when you use all the scientific forecasting system, will tell you what happens tomorrow can only be known by God. So if you probably forecast even what happens in next minute, you are probably getting out of your belief. So proper explanation need to be given, dialogues need to be started to explain how you are forecasting, probably also traditional system explaining also their system of forecasting, which is a bit not based on some supernatural and some superstitious things, but on some bit of realism. So is the indigenous system epistemology? I don't know. Is indigenous knowledge epistemology or anthropological curiosity? We see a lot of technical jargons in the question, so probably there's need to make it like people can understand. What I understood there is anthropological curiosity. So I said we said as a group, indigenous knowledge is appreciated both by the scientific community, because some of them bring relevance to science, and also by the indigenous communities. So there's also over years, indigenous information has been used over time to guide people's decisions. So what can we do to ensure that this indigenous knowledge can inform future decisions? We need to have a lot of awareness and understanding and discussion about this indigenous knowledge. Science has failed in some circumstances. This I think we explained that probably in areas where science, where knowledge or capacity is lower, literacy is lower, everything is lower, the knowledge that drives Nigani where capacities and literacy iko chini, is always the indigenous knowledge. So we can talk, maybe science cannot be well understood by people with when literacy is lower. So we felt like maybe science is not sometimes compatible to such a group, but we can't say it has failed. Thank you. I think we tried to go up to the last question, and sorry for the long minutes of singing to you. Naona watu wengi wamefunga macho.
Thank you very much. For that presentation. Any reaction? Any reaction from the group?
I think all of us, where he have said that scientific and traditional forecast, they are equal. There is none which is superior. Yet we know that the one that is recognized worldwide is scientific forecast. So when he says that it's not superior, I think we might be misreading, because it is one that is recognized, and anytime we give a county for the nation, we don't use the tradition one, so maybe he can expand.
As to whether the system is formatted to accept science as the superior knowledge, and that is what the way things are. Yes, the system is formatted to say that science is the way things are. So I think that is where now we need to go back to the why, what is the need? This knowledge generation, knowledge flow. Why are we thinking about this knowledge? For who? Because we can continue with the science, the way the scientists have done it, na muendelee na maisha. So, in terms of knowledge, we say no culture, and no culture is superior or inferior to any other. So, all knowledges are equal and should be respected, and they should be let to grow and thrive, because also a lot of investment has been invested in educating me by the government and the system to educate us to that level. What capacity has been put in the local knowledge to ensure that that knowledge also grows and is generated and it quickly comes up? My thoughts are that in terms of forecasting, as we should have a template of forecasting where this knowledge of the flowering of plants, the acacias, the ants, the swarming of bees, the flying of the kipepeo, should all be factored in as variables in determining whether if we think this knowledge is important. So the assumption that one knowledge is superior to the other and looking down on it will not allow the other knowledge to grow. So we are not saying that it's not superior. What I would say is that the knowledge of MET is universal. Is local and based on local circumstances. So I don't know which one is superior, because what are we using to determine superiority as well? So anyway, thank you. None is. Yes, but so to me, none is, it depends, because the decision as I make as a herder, it depends on application. Which one is applied, not which one is generated and available publicly or universally, because I've said in terms of investment, the investment is different in terms of human resource and propagation and extension of that knowledge. So we are saying that even ILK is valuable, MET data is very variable and important, and we've relied on it, but we need to bring up the indigenous knowledge to a level where it can compare with the MET. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doc. I think participants gave a response depending on how impactful that particular knowledge is to them. If, for example, what they feel is, what they felt most is the impact of the transitional knowledge in terms of decision making, then it is right for them to feel that way because it depends on how much that knowledge has impacted on them. So, to me, superiority needs to be put into context. Yeah, because otherwise it can be a question that can be counterproductive.
Okay, I think to contextualize that question, I think you can actually see in this group that the thinking is very diverse with respect to whether science is more superior to indigenous knowledge. But as those two speakers say, if the communities are using their own indigenous knowledge to decision everything, then they have any right to say to us, our indigenous knowledge matters most. The science, so in that case, those people, then they think that is their traditional knowledge takes more precedence. And that's perhaps is also a reason why integration is so difficult.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Molu Tepo. I work for MIDP. I think sometimes our elders, who have the indigenous knowledge on weather, they actually use the indigenous knowledge to validate the scientific knowledge. Because some of these elders actually study the behavior of the animals, the cattle. And so, when the Met says the rains will be, this season the rains will be below normal, an elder looking after the cattle will also confirm. Says the way the bulls are behaving, the way the young ones are behaving, it's like what these people are saying could be true. So both are important.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll just get right into it. So, first issue is quality of available knowledge. Low quality in terms of scientific, and also I'll explain. So, scientific knowledge should be simplified for easy understanding. I'll give an example. This questionnaire. You see, a person like me will consider that a very low quality because I have a scientific background. So if you give me big words, for me, kama mtu wa kijiji, it will be sasa hii nasema. Indigenous knowledge should be documented, written in both languages. Sometimes when the low quality in terms of knowledge comes when imeandikwa na Kiswahili. So ukipeleka mali ingine, and I am trying to, okay, I'll give an example. Most of us speak in English, but nafikiria na lugha ya mama. Ni hivyo. So when it comes out a very different thing. So what am I saying? Distortion. And that also leads to poor quality. What should happen? When you have scientific knowledge and you want it to be disseminated the way you want, involve people from the community or the users that you want to take your information to. Who should take the lead? We said everyone in that chain. And also, we should be committed towards the same. Documentation of adaptation knowledge. We realize that scientific knowledge is documented. IK, not so much. Some are and some are not. Proper documentation of IK, and also, I'll repeat, simplify scientific knowledge. Also, how can that be achieved? Integrating both knowledge generators and local elders or storytellers. So what do I mean? Uko kwa kijiji, it's word of mouth, ni hadithi, si ndio? So you can't come and listen, then go write your own things. You have to include the storyteller. Acceptance of various sources of knowledge by stakeholders. We said low acceptance depending on who. So if the stakeholder is more geared towards scientific, he will accept scientific knowledge more than IK. If it's the community, he will accept what the elder will tell him more than who, maybe akisikia mvua itanyesha, he'll be like, wacha nisikie mzanani anasema nini. You get my point? Sorry. I'm saying acceptance depends. So we say low acceptance. If somebody hears in the news, it will rain tomorrow, or you should do this, locust invasion, something. The person who is more willing to accept scientific knowledge will say yes and listen to them. But there's somebody who will be like, sasa wanasema nini? We'll go and actually ask a person who is more knowledgeable in IK, and he will listen to that. So acceptance is, it's all about context and who is accepting. So stakeholders to use existing community institutions to pass on the knowledge. I'll give an example. Today, we have KMD, they are everywhere. But when they give information about floods and people should vacate from low-lying areas, people refuse. Sema watu ni waongo. Wazee wetu wajisema kitu kama hiyo. So if they liars with the community and talk to them, not the community, the figureheads in the community, the people who listen, then they in turn will tell their people, ndio kuko hivi, vacate. So IK should also be considered when passing on this knowledge. When you tell me scientific knowledge, air composition, I'll not even listen to you. Go to the elder, seme, mbuzi inafanya hivi na hivi, mvua itanyesha itakuwa mingi, vacate. So when you're passing on information, if you want it to be accepted, integration is important. Also, capacity build existing institutions on this knowledge. Don't assume that even elders understand what the weather forecast in scientific terms. So that also may lead to low acceptance. Also, facilitate local institutions to reach the communities in time. We have this problem. Flooding at a locust. They started talking when it happened. when you're talking about climate adaptations, for example, people say, well, they're coming to me 2 days. They're not pema. So if you want your knowledge to be accepted, come to them in an acceptable time and give people time. Co-management or co-optation. We said co-management in terms of communities have institutions in place for managing natural resources. I'll give an example. The Borana community have their own yes. So most of the time they are in charge of natural resources. If I'm not wrong, they decide which direction people go in case of drought or which zones are going to be used for grazing. To that, what needs to change is giving priorities to those existing institutions in terms of resource allocation and facilitation. Now, for me, I feel that communities have they actually know how to adapt to different situations. So if you empower them and help them in terms of, facilitate them to actually increase more research on their part and know why they're saying some of these things, then you can actually bring about integration for both scientific and IK. Okay. Inclusion of resourceful elders on weather forecast. Not even going to read that. Now, yeah, before you said there's a weather station in Kenya. There might be a reason why people are not listening to what the weather forecast is saying. Hakuna mzee yao. Am I right? If you want to give weather forecast, give it to me the way I will understand it. You tell them, say it's about to rain. Yes, this is what is happening. What's happening on your part? Are you seeing any indicators happen? In that way, you give a form of integration. Empirical data or experience. We said in terms of IK, experience and empirical data collected through IK, through storytelling, through the community calendar of events. I think this is self-explanatory. Most communities have calendars of events, and the elders usually mark specific events. When I mark, so they kind of can tell a pattern. They also have some sort of data that they keep. And then documentation of the storyteller stories, or in this case, the calendar of events. What needs to change is regular updates for the calendar of events to the communities. Also, documentation of some of these storytellers are not being documented properly. You're missing out some of the things. So even during documentation process, include them. In terms of who should be responsible, everyone. Superior knowledge or scientific or indigenous. This is about context. I will not take the route and say which one is superior, but I'll play the devil's advocate. Context. Let me explain. Somebody who is in school will more likely go the scientific way, will think scientific is more superior. And someone at home may decide that indigenous knowledge is more superior to them. I rest that discussion. For IK, the community tends to follow that. This is because it is trusted. What needs to change? No knowledge is superior over the other, so IK should be fully recognized. Not recognizing when it benefits science and not recognized when it doesn't benefit science. We said complement, IK and scientific knowledge complement each other. So they should be not necessarily put together. Community knowledge generators and also county government to be to facilitate such knowledge. Also, the various departments. Should we sanitize? Okay, we said this. It should be independent, remain in its current form. We should not try to force it to become science. To allow it to operate in its current structure. I don't know how you will correct me. So, I don't know let's say I'll give an example of any Kushite culture. Some of this knowledge and how they pass and how they are created, there is a structure. There is an informal structure that is available. So trying to distort it by saying you want to sanitize it and make it, to make it more understandable sometimes, is not necessary. Also, institutionalize IK. I think that is explanatory. For this, we said the community should get involved. Also, the government to work hand in hand with the communities, and also non-governmental organizations. Okay, because IK is localized, it is difficult for integration of IK from different communities. We are 40 plus communities in this country. Most of us are very different. So you can't say that integration is going to be easy. There's always going to be friction where somebody will say, no, this is to we do this because this happens. But what you can do is to strengthen the IKs in the different communities. Capacity to build the elders with IK. We forgot to add something, which is try and compare which information is common to all. That can be codified. And the one that's not common is left to, you clearly stated in this community like this. So you don't try to codify everything as one, from one community. Okay, do we need to validate IK? No, it's already there. It is working. To adapt to changes, what can change? Okay, due to climate change, some of the indicators may cease to exist or are no longer there. So they need to adapt to such changes. And also to this we said creating suitable environment for the indicators or reintroduction of those indicators. To this, we say the people who should take the lead is the local communities themselves. The internal chat. I'll not even read that question. We translated it to be internal challenges. We said one is religion, loss of indicators. We didn't follow the system. Loss of resource persons. We have poor succession planning, where everyone is mentioning this room that the elders are dying. So we pose the question, why are they not teaching the younger generation? Or why are they not having succession plans? Also, lack of inclusivity. I'm not opening a discussion. I'm just saying most of these communities prefer men over women do some of these things. I rest it there. It was just a point. Inclusion of restoration of these indicators and also consider succession plans. All this usually happens through dialogue. If you want to bring changes to the structure, you'll have to have dialogues. You can't say succession plans, alafu hakuna watu, or the elders themselves are not willing. So you have to have dialogue. This one, we say the community should take the lead. The last one, we also translated. We didn't use English. We used our own English. Development of IK. We said it's systematic. It's been developed through a system. So I'll explain this. Someone in our group mentioned some families or some clans have specific talents. Maybe they know how to read the stars or something. So you can't find any other community do that. Any other clan member or somebody from that clan do that. There's such a lineage. And you said, let's keep the system. Why have we changed? Science has failed. Again. Sorry. We said it has not failed, but sir, your department has failed terribly, according to my group. Weather forecasting. There was an example we gave in the group. Siku ile hao watu wanasema kuna mvua, hakuna mvua. Have we had such a thing? It will rain, didn't rain. They said El Nino. Miss kuona El Nino. Nani aliona El Nino? We've not said in all cases. We've just said in some cases. But what happens when it fails, they don't actually come out and explain. The reason why you have that bad reputation, you don't come out and explain because of 1, 2, 3 things, this is happening. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for harassing me. But it's good because when we get such recommends, we actually think of trying to improve on some areas that are being mentioned. That we cannot be able to translate to all the languages as she has recommended, because some of the terminologies are not there in our vernaculars. So most of the time we do it in Kiswahili, and thinking of the many communities or many tribes in, for example, in our county, we cannot be able to do for every tribe or translate for every tribe. It would be costly sometimes, and the fundings are not there, and the terminologies are not found in those tribes. I would also like to talk a bit about El Nino. When we talk about El Nino, it's only that there has not been capacity building, because people think when we talk about El Nino, we talk about very heavy rains, but we talk about conditions that are involved in El Nino. For example, high sea surface temperatures in the Indian Ocean. When we have those conditions, we say there is El Nino conditions, but we don't say that a certain place we are going to have very heavy rains. I will do capacity building on what El Nino is. Also, the KMD or the science, they give threats what is KMD doing so that all these things that Madam has said so that we can try to correct? Number one, we are involving all the communities. At Daktari, we have already done some enclosures in different places. We have done about 5 of them so that they can also be involved in the monitoring of climate. And we have also started some platforms like WhatsApp platforms where most of the community members have also become data monitors. If you talk about Kina, there are several of them, Garabatura, everywhere. And if I can show you my WhatsApp group right now, all of them are talking about heavy winds, about strong dust, heavy dust in their areas. And even when some are talking about clouds which they are experiencing. So every person now is becoming a forecaster, and they are appreciating the information because they are also helping us to do the observation. Doctor, we have also installed some lane gauges in various parts of the county, which is also done by the community members. And therefore, because even their children need this data, and they use this data for research, most of the communities have already now started accepting our information. Thank you.
Kuna mtu ako na maoni kuchangia ama tuko sawa? I appreciate how this session has been really very engaging. Watu wengine wamechoka akili toka kizungu mingi kileto, lakini I guess the issue is we all appreciate now that whereas people talk about integration of different knowledges or integration of but we hear the word integration. Every time you hear, they say, oh, the people are not consulted. The people's ideas are not integrated into that proposal. Oh, that is a very common thing. And sometimes it is very sexy to say it so that we don't finish your report without talking about that you've actually taken care of interests of the communities. The truth of the matter is, and I think it was so important that Kwanaguyo came, because they are really trying to see how it works really. You know, this is a very good steps. Trying to walk the talk. I think MD, I appreciate what you guys are doing because you're trying to see how can it be done actually in real sense. Because it is so common. Many people just talk about integration, but they don't know how it is done. And the moment you start dissecting it, slowly by slowly you realize that it is not as easy as the way people talk about it. Isiolo County is is epicenter of all Kenyan communities, which indigenous knowledge is superior to the other. Samburu, Morana, Turkana, Somali, all those people, they have their own indigenous knowledge. If you're saying you want the county government of Isiolo to integrate communities in the way things are done, it sounds very nice. But now do go down and actually actualize those steps. These are the things that why the dialogue is so important is, so how do you go about it without just sitting on the fence and saying, oh, you know, our information was not factored in, our knowledge was not factored in. So this dialogue was basically to do that, and I appreciate that it has not been easy. Some people find it a bit uncomfortable, but I'm happy that we've gone through this. Next time, those of us, because fair enough, most of the people in this group are still in teenagers. They still have a long way in terms of their places of work and interacting with communities and so on and so forth. That after moving from here, you'll understand how easy or how difficult it is to materialize some of these things, even though they might be very nice. Is there a position that you can actually bring 10 Samburus, 10 Turkanas, Wazee, some Wazees from all the communities in Isholo. They put them in a room here and you say, can you guys, we want you to bring us, give us knowledge that you would want to incorporate into weather forecasting, for instance. And I can tell you they'll talk 2 days, 3 days, and they'll not be able to agree because it is not as easy. But anyway, the other thing I wanted to mention is that we've had a lot of, when you talk about adaptation and climate change, it's straight away KMD. But the truth of the matter is, I've already tried talking about this a number of times, that there are many other things that people are doing, which was on adaptation knowledge. Like some people have been asked to do, in Garbatula, I saw some women, they have kitchen gardens. I don't know, there's an organization, they call it Ekima. They call it Ekima, or is it something like Aki Naimani, or Aki Naamani. Something like there's an organization where they're promoting kitchen gardens at homes. And the idea is to see that people can still get some nutrition, or good nutrition, easily. So they have given them some water tanks so that they can collect water in their homes, and then they provided some small basic irrigation schemes, like a sprinkler irrigation that you can use, very simple, simplified materials. So you find in small, next to the homestead, because there's a lot of manure, so they've set aside a small area, they have planted some vegetables there. And all is aimed at trying to make communities adaptable or to mitigate climate hazards. So those are the things that did not come out as much, because we thought it was all about climate prediction and the other things as well. The issues of diversifying from cattle to the camels, this was another one. The other ideas of even micro businesses. I talked to some ladies in Merti and they said the business of selling miraa picked up so much in the recent past because it has become a way that women can actually bring some income. But they say most of the work is done by women, selling miraa. And they were complaining because of COVID, and now they cannot go beyond certain hours, then they are chased away by the police. So they're saying they are really suffering. So meaning that there are other things that people are doing, they're diversifying into small micro businesses to become better, become more resilient in their homes. And these are the things which have not come out. The question is, are those things that they just learn on their own? It came from somebody? Where did they get it from? Is it just as somebody just thought like, this is a good business, let me just get into it? There are many other adaptations that either they're homegrown, they've just been nurtured, and then they realize, oh, by the way, it's not a bad thing at all. Or because the Somalia, these days, they don't take the miraa from Kenya, so there is more extra that now comes to this side, cheaply or something, so the biashara imenoga. So you don't know, but the truth of the matter is there are many things people are doing that some of them could have been because they learned from some communities, or they learned from other people, from NGOs and other places. And all those are knowledges that are helping people to adapt. So as we leave this place, we should think also that broadly, that what we are discussing was, I think we used a lot of examples on methodological information to a large extent, because I think that's the beginning. After you get those information, what next? But I'm very happy that you guys have been patient enough since we started in the morning until this time. I think we should not be fair that people can go and rest, but I don't want to close it up. If some people have something that are very burning, that then they can say something. I was just trying to make some remarks. If somebody has some issues.
The one of man, the one he's rest the case. I want to revive the case. when you share with people, and then you make it rest on their head, you are making them restless. So there was a research done recently on impact of these interventions, the NGO, the government interventions towards empowering a girl child. So, and a recent analysis showed the number of girl child from class 6 to 8 is more than the boy child. Because the boy child are neglected in the process, they are also not given a lot of attention, and many of them end up even not getting the formal education that is expected. And there's even when at school in Kenyatta, the number of women, I don't know whether the university was an education, the number of us are almost in a good number more than the number of men, or ladies are more than number of in the universities. The empowerment approaches, even the development tenets and even ideologies nowadays is more of empowerment, and it has, I think, empowered more women currently than men. Even in the pastoral setup, we have gone to the extent where we are asking the indigenous knowledge elders like that they must include, for them to be recognized and understood, even listened to by the government or any formal institution for recognition. They must have certain gender in their composition. So I think that old thinking of saying everything is empowering men over women is dying, and nowadays even more people are focusing on.
Thank you. I think one thing came out from the last group: absence of succession planning in the management of indigenous knowledge. Because as Mr. Nguyo said, our elders are dying with knowledge. And so then what method do we use to make sure that we tap this knowledge before they go with them? And we need to look at this from the technological aspect. Maybe to attract our young people to appreciate and accept indigenous knowledge. If it could be linked to technology, how can it be packaged in such a way that, becomes attractive to? That's for the researchers.
It's an open, so that nobody would say this was guided democracy. So tomorrow there is no any guideline. We come here and then we have a discussion. So to that extent, I would want to ask one person to close the prayer, then we can discuss. I think we've captured the name of the people who've been here. So for the facilitation, I'll be able to do that on the phone. Unless tumia line nyingine. So the numbers of the telephone numbers that Luther picked are the ones I'll use for facilitation. Unless you change, then you need to give me the right number. Kama kuna fuliza, nyonya nyingine. Kuna chai, kunywa chai, and then we can go home at our own pleasure. Chai iko first floor. Nani atatuombea? Kambo, na wewe ama niliona nini? Pastor Joseph. Wow.
Tuombe. Tuombe. Mungu wetu, tunataka kushukuru jioni ya leo kwa ulinzi ambao umetupatia mchana kutwa. Asante hata kwa masomo ambayo tumeyapata. Tunakushukuru, tunalinua jina lako. Asante kwa ulinzi. Tunaomba utupatie usiku mzuri. Tunapoondoka katika kikao hii, kwa pamoja nasi, tulinde kesho tukikutana katika kikao hiki pia. Tunakushukuru na kulinua jina lako. Asante Baba yetu kwa kuwa umetupenda. Asante hata kwa kutujalia afya nzuri. Asante hata kwa kutupatia amani. Kwa jina la Yesu tumeomba na kuamini. Amen.